Then after we'd been up in Italy a while, for some reason, and we never did find out, we were still with the same pilot, and they transferred us to England. So we went up there, and I can't tell you anymore, but I think of the name of the place was Wendling, Wendling. I think that was it, because we weren't there very long. We flew a couple of missions out there, and then we had mechanical. We had two engines out on one side, and they just don't fly very far on two engines out on one side. Finally got one of those started again, running about halfway, and our orders were, do not let the Germans capture you. If at all possible, go to either a neutral country or try to get back to France or somewhere. Try to keep the Germans, because what they were doing, they were planning on moving the prisoners of war to the cities, so we'd quit bombing the cities. And that's what they were going to move a bunch of them into Berlin. So they were just tearing the heck out of Berlin. The day that we had to quit flying, if you want to call it that, the day we got out of action. This was in March of '44, and the Germans still had air superiority at that time. And don't let anybody kid you, I don't know what the books say, but they had air superiority until about the latter part of 1944. We went, Friedrichshafen was a place where they made, I think they made aircraft frames. And that's right on this Lake Constance. And we went to there, and before we got to the thing where we were having all this difficulty, so we turn and go into Switzerland, and we land at
Adelboden.
Hmm?
Adelboden?
No. I can't tell you where we landed now. Well, wherever. It's near field. We knew that. We had this kind of information, all this kind of information. We had, our navigator had this stuff. We had an excellent navigator. He was very studious kind of person, pretty quiet, and anyhow, we went in there. We didn't have too much difficulty with that. Got down without killing anybody, and didn't tear up the airplane. Any real, nobody was hurt. So then they pick us up from there, and I've got on these sheepskin lined. It was cold. I got on these sheepskin lined flying boots, and I left my shoes in the plane. I went back in there to get it, and here's this Swiss guard got that rifle pointing at him. It's got a hole that big around the end of that barrel. And I didn't know Schweizerdeutsch from anything, but I knew the word shoes. And I said, I'm going to get my shoes. And I went back in and got the shoes and come back out. And of course, you could see what I was after. And shoe is the same word anyway.
Mm-hmm.
Shoe,
yeah.
S-C-A-U-H or something like that. Anyway, so we got it. So they took us in, and all we had to give them was name, rank, serial number, and that's all. And we were not mistreated, and the civilians showed some hostility. I think what their problem was mainly was that they had a lot of food. They didn't have a whole lot of food, and they had some things that were really hurting them, They couldn't get this, they couldn't get that, and they thought, well, these guys are coming in here, that's just more mouths for us to feed, this sort of thing. It eventually turned out we had about 60 airmen there, and we had about 600 Germans that had come into there, and I'm reasonably sure that they probably had the same orders. These people are going to kill you on the ground. You better get it. If you want to come back and fight for us, well, you're going to have to take cover somewhere. And maybe some of them deserted. I don't know about that. That's their problem, not ours. So they were working on an exchange, and we figured that was about the right ratio, one of us to 10 of them. And we were there then for 11 months. I was there 11 months. I was not mistreated.
What kind of area did you stay in?
We stayed in an old hotel that they had converted over to kind of like a barracks deal.
Mm-hmm.
And there wasn't a plentiful supply of food, but we didn't suffer or anything like that. Nobody was hurt. Nobody was mistreated. I think there's people were resentful that we were there, but we didn't have that much contact.
Did you get mail? Could you send mail?
Yeah, we could do mail. We could do B-mail.
Mm-hmm.
And somewhere or other, the American Legion,
Red Cross?
the Legion. That's not what I want to say.
The Red Cross?
No, the United States representatives there.
Oh, the embassy?
Consul.
Yeah, the consul.
Yeah. Legation. That's what.
Mm-hmm.
That's the word I'm looking for. They contacted us, and we met. Most people come see about us and all that sort of thing, but I wouldn't want anybody to be under the impression that we were mistreated. Then we tried to do things there so people had something to do, and I got working around where we could get the consul. Captain Free was this guy's name, come from Bern, Switzerland. And then we had Ernie Pyre, who was the chaplain. He lived in someplace, I can't tell you where it was right now. And he'd come see us. And we'd have church and all that sort of thing. And then they wanted a ping pong table, and I said, I can build a ping pong table if you'll get us things to work with. So they did. And we had a basement in this hotel thing, and I built a ping pong table. Then we had some people that were shot down and were in the lake, and they fished them out, and they were going to bury them. So they asked, is anybody here? They knew I'd built this table. Said, can you make crosses for the graves? And I said, sure. You help me get, I'll tell you what I need in the way of tools and lumber and paint. So they got the lumber for me and stuff, and I made the crosses. Then they took us on the train, and I took the crosses, and they put them on the train, and we went to a little town called Munsingen. And they had this funeral service in the church there at Munsingen. And I left the crosses, and then they erected them. Then later on, the Swiss dedicated this land to the United States. And they made it look a little nicer. And I helped carry the people and all that kind of stuff. So that's after we came out of Switzerland. They took us out on a train, and we went to some. Is it Lyon? They call it Lyon.
Lyon?
Lyon or something, France.
Lyon?
This is where they took us. We went through a tunnel and come out over there.
This was your
From
exchange.
Switzerland there.
Yeah.
And I was in charge of the train. Like I said, I was the older of these people. See, and they kind of had me do some things that some of the younger ones either wouldn't do or couldn't do. Anyway, or maybe I was stuck with it and too damn dumb to realize they were putting things on me that I shouldn't be. And I sat on that train, and they come with sandwiches, and I guess they were like minced ham or blanc, and some kind of fruit, I don't recall what it was, and white bread. And I sat on there, and I never tasted anything in my life that tasted any better than that sandwich. Ever. Than that sandwich. And you'd make fun of it today, you know. That's the way I felt. So we got there, and then they put us on C-47s and flew us back. We went by Paris. I saw the Eiffel Tower from the air, and then we went by and went back to England where we had left almost a year before. We went down to the boat to load on the boat, and if I'd had a pet elephant, I could have let him run up the gangway. Nobody had said a thing about it. Guys were carrying all barracks bags with a rifle barrel sticking out. You name it.
But you didn't have anything.
Well, the Irish Sea, we went through the Irish Sea, and we had to stay below decks 2 days. And it was miserable. That boat was creaking and groaning, and I know I can't swim that far. I just can't swim that far. And about the third day, we were able to come up on deck, and they told us, it says, be careful. Some guys were terribly seasick. It didn't bother me at all. I was used to the airplane and all this stuff like that, and I guess that's why it didn't bother me. But some of the guys were real bad seasick. So don't fall overboard if we won't stop. We can't pick you up, because if we do, the submarines will get us. That was a trick they had. If somebody, somewhere or other, they say there's a man overboard, and then these guys would stop. And when they did,
You'd get them.
They torpedoed them, because no doubt they followed them. They probably did, I don't know. We had destroyers with us. That sea was so rough you couldn't see the destroyers half the time. They were going down and up and down like that. It was miserable, I'll tell you.
What time of year was this?
Probably April,
Ugh.
March.
Spring storm and rough weather.
Yeah. We had, then we landed in, about the third or fourth day out. It took us about 7 or 8 days. About the third or fourth day out, it was a pretty day. Everybody's up on decks, and they took us into the mess hall. And they had nice food, really nice. And china plates and all that kind of stuff, This ship had been a ocean liner, and they had converted it to a hospital ship. So we went, I went up to the mess hall or room, and they had, I can't tell you exactly, but real nice food. And then for dessert, they had cherry pie and ice cream. Well, about the time they served the dessert, they opened up the doors so you could look out and see the waves going up and down. And these guys were getting seasick, and I was eating their cherry pie and ice cream. Isn't that awful?
That's good.
I felt for him a little bit.